I am Vince Perez. I own VIP Forensics. I was a police officer for 10 years, did pretty good on the LSAT, went to law school at George Mason Scalia School of Law, and then eventually worked at a DNA lab where I came up with my device, the Easy Gather, which is what which is on the screen there. So what I saw was the need to collect forensic data on location. And that's what we did with the Easy Gather. It's a simple device. I think it's elegant rather than easy, but elegant gather didn't sound very good. So Easy Gather is much better. But so what we do is we kind of fill a gap now between DNA collection and other identifiers. So let's say like our newest device, the Absolute ID, right? It all stems from the Easy Gather. And this is the Easy Gather right here. It's very simple. You can put any type of solution at the top of this. Right now, it's like has a DNA security solution. You break it, the solution runs down the swab, and then you swab and you carry it, and you're done. You lock it in, and it's done, and it dries on its own in 6 hours. And everyone says, "Oh, that's cool. What else does it do?" Well, that's where we came up with the Absolute ID. So we now have an NFC chip, and this will be embedded in the device, and it would allow us now through our new app, our smartphone app. We will be able to collect not only DNA, but facial recognition, iris scan, and a fingerprint image. So we're gonna. That's why it's called the Absolute ID, because we get your identification absolutely. You know, DNA is the most, probably the most reliable identifier there is, right? It's basically God saying you did it. But we thought that there was a need, especially at the border and other places. It's trafficking and other things that are going on that are nefarious that we need to stop. The best thing to do as a former cop, you're better off knowing who didn't do it than who did do it. It's 50-50 either way. So what we did is we said, okay, well, how can we close that gap between DNA collection and DNA analysis? Because right now, I mean, unless you have rapid DNA, you're waiting at least 30 days, probably more, before you get that person's identification. So what we did through the Absolute ID, now you can collect DNA, but you also can collect this other biometric, and it's all downloaded onto a secure cloud, which allows us to have one file for each swab. So it's individual. So you never get it mixed in with the other data, and you can even decide whether you want to do all of the biometrics or just one, or just DNA, or just facial recognition. You can turn that into whatever you think, or whatever it's timely, because you know the military and the police are kind of the same, but they're different, right? Military can't put up a yellow tape, right, and say, okay, you got to leave, or that's not how that works. So we see it as a really, because now crime scene, and you know, you have all the TV shows and everything else, but the crime scene is moving more technical, right? There's companies out there now that provide, you know, iPads that download all the pictures and everything else. Well, this is kind of in that same realm, because what we do is we allow you to track your collection, not only through the app, but then through the person as well. So let's say on the border, like here's a great test use. On the border, if you have someone that comes across with let's say, you know, a little girl and they're trafficking someone, well, you can get their DNA, but unless you have rapid DNA, that person can come back and forth with different victims for months. But have the other identification, now you can figure out who this person is, and you can call them over and figure this out. But the other thing we did, you know, during the pandemic, we really, you know, we were on the border and then we weren't, right? Because they shut everything down. So, you know, one of the things that I did is I'm working with a lab in Texas, and we're also making this into a rapid COVID-19 test. So, which with the app you can get results, we can get push notices, healthcare stuff, and things like that. So if you look at it and say to yourself, wow, that's really easy. It looks like, my kids call it an expensive Q-tip. But, you know, the cool thing is that with our technology that we added on, we're going to move into different places as well. Like right now, we're going to do drug residue. We're working on explosive residue, because you can actually download the app and take a picture of the device that you're actually getting residue from and figure out, you know, where it was made and everything else. Because, you know, one of the things that I know from a police officer, as well as an attorney putting evidence into court and everything else, is I know what's the best use of this device, right? And we are the total swab and go guys, right? We swab and we move on. For the residues, we hold on to that, the DNA and everything else. We're going to hold on to that until it's ready to be analyzed. And that's the great thing about this device, is that it will dry on its own. So anything you collect DNA-wise, it'll dry on its own. But then you can also add the other biometric modalities that are really important to get a full circle identification of someone. And I'm VIP Forensics. You can get me at Vincent@vipforensics.net.